Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for May 7th, 2018. We'll begin with item number 1, 62468BZ, 18807, 15 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, we have proof of service and notice of hearing to officials. We're waiting for the community board recommendation. Community board meets today, apparently. I'd like to know what the status of the 2012 and 13 violations for work without a permit is, because that wasn't mentioned as they went through their list of violations. And also why a C of O hasn't been updated since its expiration in 2001. They should file the paperwork to be ready to obtain this upon the BSA's decision, and show us that it's been filed. At the 2011 hearings, the Auburndale Improvement Association voiced certain concerns. I'd like to know whether these have been attended to in the years since. The concerns were trucks must pull into the yard fully and not block the sidewalk, must not double park on Northern Boulevard. The sign for North Shore Plumbing Supply should be repaired, the fence should be repaired, the storage of pipe should be cleaned up and removed from view on Northern. The sites advertising the florist must be scaled back, and planters must be maintained on 189th Street. So they should respond to those. We also had conditions in our resolution that they claim they're responsive to. Any others? Any
Yeah,
other
I
comments?
have comments based on site visits. It seems there were, and also the photos that they had submitted.
Right.
It seems there are material that are stored on the sidewalk along Northern Boulevard. And based on my site visit, while I didn't see the material stored on sidewalk from the plumbing operation, but the abutting use, which is, I think, a store that sells various kind of construction material or accessory supplies. They have their material outside on the sidewalk.
Oh, but is that the same establishment or an adjoining establishment?
It's an adjoining establishment.
Which this isn't related to, right?
No, but isn't this for this entire lot?
So it was for an
the
establishment
entire commercial operation on that entire frontage. And it has three different stores. It has the plumbing store, and then it has the other store, which is always operated as an accessory kind of a construction store type of.
Well, this is an R district, so
Right.
it can't, it
So-
has to have been pursuant
Right, so
to a
it's
variance.
for the, my understanding is for this entire building, which has 3 or 4 different commercial operations, and plumbing is one of them, and then there is an insurance company.
And there's a florist.
And there's a florist that's on the.
Right.
They need to provide a compliance chart with all the specific elements outlined, which is what we are referring to. Also, I was not able to get a good sense of the condition of the rear wall and the grass area that abuts the residential, so they need to provide photos of the rear wall and the condition. It seems there is a temporary roof structure that's placed over the rear in that rear open area. As per plan, that's supposed to be an open space. There's a temporary roof structure, so I want to know what that is all about. I think the signage may be in excess per use, so they need to provide analysis of the signage by each use and frontage. And the plants along 189th Street, as per the approved plan, these were planter beds with plants on them. Maybe it's the winter, that's why they look very raggedy and not healthy, but just need to understand.
Any other comments?
No? Item number 2, 30879BZ, 43 Clark Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, we have proof of service of initial application to officials, but I didn't find proof of notice of hearing, so we need that quickly.
Okay, I'll look for that.
Community board waives its review. The fire department had recommendations on May 4th.
Oh, you got that? Okay.
I'd like fire department, I'd like the applicant to discuss the current state of the sprinkler system, which we are told by the applicant needs to be amended to reflect current code requirements and needs 3 months to complete as of mid-March. So that's something that needs to be coordinated with fire department. I wasn't quite understanding the interface between fire department comments and the applicant's statement that they need 3 months to install, which would be now 2 months since it's actually even a month and a half, right? Also, I always ask, why hasn't the CFO been updated? In this case, it might be because there's a lot of other violations in the building that it can't cure because it's unrelated to this use. Any other comments?
The previously approved plans are missing the second floor, fourth floor, and fifth floor pages.
Second floor, fifth floor,
Fourth and fifth.
fourth and fifth? Okay.
Anyone else on this?
I wanted to know if there were any signage.
Is there signage?
Yeah, the plans did not show any signage calculations. And it's a historic building,
It
so.
says 11 square feet,
Oh, okay.
total and non-illuminated. I think it's like a plaque kind of
Black
thing.
kind of thing. And it's a historic building, so it would have probably. Okay, thank you.
Oh, if you can speak
Yeah.
up. Yes, please.
Speak a little louder, I'm sorry.
Oh, I think it's a plaquey kind of thing. It's at 11 square feet.
Yeah. Okay.
Item number 3, 17505BZ, 1824 LaCour Street, Brooklyn.
There are no notice requirements for extensions of time to complete. This is the second requested extension of time to complete construction since 2007, and no work has been done on the site. The time was extended in 2011 for 4 years, so should have been completed in 2005. I'm sorry, 2015. Not really understanding why this wouldn't then become a new variance application at a certain point. Don't we need to determine that weather conditions have changed since the initial grant? I mean, in other words, how long do we allow them to complete construction when it just keeps going on and on and on? Isn't there a point at which you need to come back, that you need to prove it again? I mean, I just don't really understand that it's an indefinite quantity of renewals.
I mean, well, how many renewals have they had?
They've had, would be the second requested extension.
Yeah,
The
that's
first
only
one-
we have seen cases
know,
that
but-
are more. I mean, as for this site, there has been nothing that has
That's
really
what I mean.
changed on this block. This block is basically same as it has always been, manufacturing in the form of like contractors' yards and outdoor storage spaces, along with a few homes that are probably long time pre-existing.
Right.
So, I mean, I do know that a lot of smaller projects had trouble getting financing from the first time that they came around, so I'm not surprised that this is one of them, being in an area that was not really ripe for gentrification or redevelopment, not this block. Some of the blocks in Red Hook that were further southwest, yes, but not this block. So I'm not surprised.
Okay, but, I mean, I think it just raises the question, like, how long can this go on? Right? I mean,
Can we
they haven't done
grant them-
anything unlike the next one where they've,
However, they said now they have financing,
right.
and they have given us a
what I was
construction
doing
timeline
on
of
this
all
one.
the tasks and how long it's going to take for each task.
This
So
one
it
I
sounds
did
like
check.
moving forward, they seem to now have everything they need to get this rolling.
what did you say?
Can we make it like staged grant? If they complete the foundation within that time, we can
Yeah, we.
go ahead and give them like a longer term. If not,
Well, we could say,
Then-
for instance, this is the last extension. I mean, a grant was in 2007, so does a variance last indefinitely? Why should it? Right? If conditions have changed, and might have changed, right? Finance situations, the neighborhood character, the ability, this is a 60 by 100 lot, the ability to use it for something else. At what point does it need to be a new variance. So,
I agree with Commissioner Otley Brown in the sense that the neighborhood character definitely has not changed. So with regards to that, doing a new analysis and will the use, would then, the question for me is that if a manufacturing use today became viable, then this.
Commercial use.
Commercial use became viable, then this reanalysis would make sense. But this change, this area has almost remained stagnant. There has been no change whatsoever in the uses. No new users have come in. No old, it has I think the number of vacancy. And I didn't review the first project, but I'm just going by what I remember of this site from my other projects. It's been the same. So I think from a need, from the variance, from the fact that you need a change of use, and that probably would be the same.
And
I don't know about the financing part.
well, I just want to add that a lot of the cases that we had that came around right before 2009 really suffered. So it's almost like the first 4 years, they get a buy on that because nobody was getting financing. So then you really have to look to 2011 to 2015 as really, when you would start to say, okay, let's see if they're getting their act together. So the fact that they need another extension past that, I'm not surprised,
okay. But, I mean, just to say, all right, but now financing is readily available. So if they didn't proceed in the next 4 years, what's the excuse now?
I think a tight leash is appropriate at this point. If they don't, unless they have a very good reason for it, if they can't proceed the next 4 years, they would need to give us a very good excuse for it.
You could say this is the final.
I'll be curious to know if they have submitted plans of what the status of the plan drawings and if it has been.
They've done nothing on the site. They've done nothing. They don't have approved plans, they don't have anything.
I
Has the
thought
site-
they did, because it says upon grant, they will begin the construction portion.
I didn't find
I believe
approved.
that they already have approved plans.
I think I went online on this and I didn't find plans were approved. Okay, so that's something that we need.
Is the site being maintained well in the interim?
It's fenced off.
Yeah. It's not like that, well, the other site that we were talking about was a vesting case, so that's a different thing. But,
I was wondering about the community around it, if its current state is affecting it negatively.
No, as I said, that block, it looks like, there are other lots. It's the other side of an industrial block on the side just south of it, so it's,
Okay.
okay. So we need to know what the status of the drawings are.
And again, it's not possible to put condition like they need to finish the foundation within the first, let's say, 3 months. If it's possible to
It's
put-
possible, but the only thing is then how do we check it, right? We don't have a mechanism for checking whether
They
they
can
did.
come back in that specific, after this specific period and get us like
Well,
photos.
let's put it this way, the board has tried that in the past, and then they don't come back. So, they don't submit anything, they don't come back, and the only way the board can deal with it is it needs to be following up, and we don't have a mechanism at this moment to follow up.
Okay.
Maybe we will.
Can we have like a compliance, like when we have an issue with a granted variance, we have like a compliance?
We have compliance hearings.
Yeah, can we have a compliance, let's say if we say, you got it, provided that you finish foundation within 6 months. And then in 6 months from now, we have a compliance hearing, somebody goes to the site and see if they started to put foundation and then they are good. If they've done nothing, then they lose
So
it.
more typically, we do those as short leashes, like you give a leash for a year, something like that. Say, okay, we'll give you an extension for a year, it's conditioned on completed foundations in a year, just to say, to throw that out. But you have to come back, and so you don't have an extension to complete construction, you have an extension to complete foundations, kind of, so it's a different animal, which is,
But I just think we should maybe wait to hear more about
Yeah.
the progress and the status of what the applicant is anticipating and.
right.
And they do say on page 2, approved building. So maybe they should provide us some
Yeah.
permits.
Yeah.
or
Clarify what they meant by
Approved
that.
plans that have
Yeah.
been stamped and approved by DOB, but they are referring to it as the approved building.
Okay.
And as per the last resolution, there was a restrictive deck that was required to address the potential hazardous material impact. I think that was executed in 2006, so there are site cleanup preps, so that also will add to the time. And maybe that is another reason why also there was difficulty in securing the necessary financing.
Or maybe they've already done the remediation and they haven't.
Right, and that,
said.
if they
So-
have, then that would be an update that
Right,
would
They-
help
they
towards
didn't-
their
yeah.
argument.
right, right.
Move on?
Yeah, one second. Okay.
Go. Item number 4, 32205BZ, 6969 Main Street, Queens.
Okay. There are no notice requirements for extensions of time to complete. In this case, this is the third extension of time to complete since the initial variance in 2006. However, here, the work is 80% complete according to the statement of facts. Yeah. Yeah?
I don't think so.
You don't think so, but there's work on the site, right?
Well, the photos that's been submitted and the site visits, I don't think the rear extension has happened, which really was the approval. There's an existing building and there was an extension of about 26 feet up to the full height of the building. And that rear extension has not happened. And the photos indicated, and I actually was confused with my site visit because I was looking for that building with an extension and I couldn't find it. And what is confusing me even more is that the plans show that there is an elevator pit that is located at the rear interior extended corner. We have photos that shows there is an elevator pit. That elevator pit then must not be in that rear interior extended portion. It must be somewhere else. Or it has been built. So it's a little confusing, the photos and what's there.
Okay. So we need the
what was
photos
approved.
keyed to the plan.
Or they need to provide more current photos and keep to the plans. And definitely the photos provide do indicate that there has not been an addition to the existing building.
But there's certainly construction work that's gone on.
Within the
Right.
existing building, there
Right.
has been repair work and other things that have happened. But they haven't built the the extension, which is a substantial portion, because you have to extend the cellar. So there's a foundation work that would be needed, and the rest of the structure all the way up to the first floor.
Right, it should be extended to the garage, and
Yeah.
right now, there's an open space between the
Yeah.
building and the garage.
Yeah. Let me just pull out the photo. And this site is right behind, just to give you an orientation, that medical office that was on Jewel Street. This building is just behind that.
Yeah.
It's on that same corner side.
Okay, so we need
So,
more
Just
info.
to give you-
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's where the extension is supposed to
And in real life, because in real life, it's not there.
happen. No.
Okay, so they need to explain the status of things. And also, there's $1,300 in ECB fines that are owed that need to be paid before we make a decision here. Okay. Anybody else on this? Okay.
Item number 5, 18-09BZ, 250 West 54th Street, Manhattan.
I need to recuse from this one?
So we have proof of service of initial application to officials and notice of hearing. Committee board has waived the review of the application. This is an application for an extension of term. Just as a point of reference, the current term expires on November 21st, 2021. November 2021, I don't know the date, but 2021 is when it expires. The applicant is requesting an extension of the term to November 2026. Applicant is also requesting an amendment to the special permit to change the operator to Crunch, and also waiver of the rules. My question is, in the application, the applicant has indicated that sprinkler system and fire alarm works where applications were filed at DOB. My question is where they completed and signed off, they need to indicate that. And as per the 2012 approved plan, installation of fire alarm and sprinkler was a requirement. So where they implemented, and I mean, the work can continue because the term, and this is for FDNY, the work can continue because the term hasn't expired, but we just need to know if that prior work was done or not. Those are my comments.
I just have a request that they reconcile the signage between the analysis and the elevations on the plans. It looks like it needs to be corrected.
Signage. Excuse me. Item number 6, 2016, I'm sorry, it's manager. 2016 4150BZ 667 Grand Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, this is the legalization. They opened in January 2016. We have proof of service of initial applications to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board recommends approval with one opposed. By that time, the gym had been operating for 6 months, so it seems like if there had been big problems, there would have been people attending that hearing. But however, to be safe, should we have them notify the tenants? I mean, it's a CrossFit. And I think this is the one that, yes, this is the one that says they lift up to 200 pounds and they drop them onto the plyo boxes. So this is one of those classics, right? We have 3 letters in support, 2 of which are from neighbors in nearby buildings, and 1 of which is from the building owner, so it's not tenants. And we don't have DOI. We need DOI. Any other comments?
Just a little bit of a
DOI,
cleanup.
was there a change in operator on this?
Oh,
This is a new
this is a new,
PC.
this is a legalization.
You need the DOI.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll check that. I'm sorry, I thought that
I
one
didn't
was
find
different. I confused it with the other one, I'm sorry.
Just a clarification on the zoning chart. Zoning chart shows that there is a 3,605 square foot of floor area
Thought I had that. Wait a minute.
of community facility use and none for commercial. I think that's a typo, so just need to clean that up.
I just have a question about their fire safety issues. It was unclear to me whether they have only a cellar sprinkler system or a full sprinkler system that goes through their entire space, which is cellar, ground floor, mezzanine.
Oh, it's the
And
grand-
also, if they could explain their fire alarm system. Is it just lighted exit signs, or is it a fully integrated fire alarm system?
I actually didn't see let's see. Yeah, I didn't see a letter from fire department in here, so.
We have one on that one? Okay.
It's a 3,600 square foot space in the cellar, first and mezzanine. Just put it in perspective. And there's 10 to 12 people who work in those spaces. Okay.
Good. Item number 7, 2017 31BZ 10717 34th Avenue, Queens.
This was administratively adjourned. They made their submission 10 days late.
Item number 8, 2017 39BZ 271 Church Street.
Just a correction on the calendar, the last hearing was adjourned. Okay. So at the last hearing, we asked that the tenants be notified of this application. At that hearing, the applicant stated that they were not notified. There's an affidavit stating that tenants were notified as part of our standard checklist, but there were no proofs of mailing or posting in the lobbies. So there had, normally we see the list of tenants that are attached, and not list of tenants, list of neighbors to be notified that are attached, and I didn't see it, tenants in any way listed there, so.
Is there a photograph of a posting?
Yeah, photograph of a posting, something indicating how the tenants were notified.
So that wasn't provided, a photo?
No,
was
nothing
not.
was
Okay,
provided.
Nothing was provided, okay.
So, and then just a note to our council that there's a plot plan, Z-01, that was provided separate from the complete set of drawings. That was provided to show where the front door is relative to the street, so that needs to be combined onto the whole set. And we have certification of acceptance with respect to the fire alarms and sprinklers from fire department. I didn't find the DOI sign off, which I'd asked for, I believe, the last time. And this is a legalization.
So you need the DOI sign off? Okay.
Yeah, there's no deal, but, no, there's no
Yeah.
deal.
Anybody else on this one?
Item number 9, 2017-62BZ, 387 Park Avenue South.
This is also a legalization. They opened in October of 2016. They didn't apply for a year, actually. We approve of service of initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board waived its recommendation. We have one letter in support. The applicant says the tenants were notified by email and posting in the lobby. There's actually a photograph of the sign on a window someplace. We have affidavit from the sprinkler installer inspector that sprinklers are in operation, and we have DOI. This is an existing 12-story, yeah. I didn't see any proof about the alarm system, however. So maybe we still need fire department. Anything else, anybody?
Item number 10, 2017-130BZ, 4701 Barnett Avenue, Queens.
Again, another legalization. We have proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors, but I didn't find proof of service of the initial application to officials or a community board recommendation, so that can mean that they never received anything.
All right, I'll check on that.
And I just want to clarify, because the statement of facts was very unclear about this. This PCE occupies the entirety of this one-story building. And it's just, you can tell that from the floor plans that it's doing it, but that makes a difference that it's the only tenant, especially because it's a CrossFit. The applicant states that it isn't required to have a fire alarm and sprinkler system. It's an existing building that they moved into that was built for another purpose. I'd say this is a fire department call, really, but just to point out to the fire department that it's a very small one-story building. It's 3,200 square feet, or a little bit over 38 square feet, with only one tenant with very small occupancy because they teach 16 people per class. And there's egress directly from the workout area to the street and no locker rooms, just toilet room. So, but I also didn't find DOI.
Okay.
And it's a standalone building. It's
Yeah,
surrounded by a parking garage and the Sunnyside Yards on the other side.
And I'm only saying that because, as we know, both of those systems are really expensive. And this is a standalone building.
It's actually the ideal place to put a CrossFit. It's like they couldn't have picked a more
Only
perfect place.
They are the only ones who, unless somebody just doesn't like them, won't have problems.
Right.
I remember when we had our first CrossFit and I was online and there were these chat rooms for CrossFit owners and one of them writing to the general chat, like, what do I do? I'm getting all these complaints, like, what should I do? And they said something like, move to an open field. Okay.
Item number 11, 2017-299BZ, 24202 61st Avenue, Queens.
I know there was a subsequent submission, so I'll just talk about my issues, and I know the other commissioners had other questions. Plans were amended, but the zoning calculation chart was supposed to be amended to show the total proposed zoning and gross square feet. So there's still a little mess there. Drawing A23 shows the total existing zoning square feet at 327,841 and gross at 334,509 square feet. And describes it as existing. The existing parking is 1,265 and the proposed parking is 1,164 spaces. Existing loading berth 6 and proposed 7. So I think actually the description of the zoning and gross floor area is incorrect. It's probably supposed to be proposed total floor area since it includes Lowe's additional proposed areas in quotes of 15,181 square feet to sub-cellar. So that's probably just a labeling error as opposed to an arithmetic error. The proposed floor area chart on A26 doesn't add up to the same number as the chart on A23 and has 3,841 square feet of mechanical space shown there that isn't shown on the chart on A23. So the A23 chart needs to have subtotals for each floor to be able to check the work. That's part of the problem with those charts, that you have to do the math yourself to figure it out. It needs to coordinate also on A27, the increased floor area numbers with the A24 floor area chart. And I question whether the loading area and propane storage spaces on A27 are considered additional floor area. If so, they aren't included in the floor area chart. They just get labeled on the plans, but they don't show up anywhere on the floor area chart. At the last hearing, we discussed whether, for example, that bench storage area is actually floor area that's kind of away from the building. So areas that are labeled with square feet should indicate whether they're exempt or not, because that's, I think, part of the confusion. They're kind of including them, not including them, it's not consistent. And also mechanicals have to show in the gross square feet, but be clearly deducted on the zoning square foot charts. So you see sometimes mechanicals appear, and other times they don't appear at all, and then sometimes the mechanicals are deducted, and sometimes not. I don't think also we resolved whether the Lowe's sign is permitted on the side of the Fairway building, but I would recommend that we condition our decision on all signage complying with C1 regs and be clear that DOB will determine C1 regulation compliance. The issue really is that there's a really large sign proposed on the Fairway building, which isn't the Lowe's building, and I don't know how DOB interprets that. It is on one zoning lot, but it's really far away from the subject. I just don't know.
Should a note be placed on the site plan?
It's placed on, should a note, yeah, a note should be placed on the site plan that that signage must comply with C1 regulations.
And DOB to determine.
Yeah, DOB, yeah. Also, I don't think the elevation and sectional designations, the call-outs that indicate where the section is taken through on the plans, I don't think those are accurate. For example, drawing elevation A28 shows the Lowe's additional sales area, but plans A25 and A26 that are the proposed plans don't show any Lowe's areas, but have an elevation designation A28. I actually think the proposed and existing plans got mixed up and mistitled. So that, somebody needs to go carefully through the plans, because you don't see changes on the first and cellar floors. You only see changes on the sub-cellar level. And ditto for the elevation on A29. It's the same issue with that elevation. For me, the truck circulation is still an issue. I don't know, I didn't see anything submitted in response to that question. The plans weren't modified and still show the semi-trailers driving past the homes that are at that main entrance and around the entire parking lot past parked cars going to Fairway and other retailers. Those trucks will be carrying very heavy loads, and maybe even, because this is all construction materials, it's going to be like a gigantic truck stacked with sheetrock or pipes or whatever. Those things are noisy, and they potentially, especially if it's like sheetrock, they produce dust and debris as they travel through the lot. Deliveries will no doubt be frequent and in early mornings or maybe even all day, particularly because, you know, these Lowe's end up servicing general contractors. So they could run out of sheetrock and need several deliveries a week even. And I really don't see, I understand this whole issue about the ramp being too low for the trucks to pass, but it seems like there should be another way to avoid driving right in front of all those houses and around the entire parking lot, past cars that are parked. Like if Fairway, unless their deliveries get done in the middle of the night, they're driving past parked cars that are going to the supermarket. I had also requested lateral and longitudinal sections through the site, and I don't think those were provided. That was to understand better the relationship between the levels. So I only saw the same sections as we had before. Anybody else?
I didn't have any additional comments. I made another site visit and tried to follow the truck routes and the issues around it. I think there aren't that many options. So first of all, the exit on 65th Street is definitely no, and that's not what they're proposing, and that's not having, because that's where the whole residential street is. The issue becomes the remaining 3 exits, one off 61st and 2 off Douglaston. 61st, it's just not a truck route because you have a very sharp bend, and there isn't any way to access the subcellar. It really leads you to the topmost parking tier. So there's no way you get to the subcellar level. The only way to access the subcellar level is as a car. I can do it from the 2 entrances of the Douglaston. However, as the applicant pointed out, the northernmost exit of on the Douglaston Parkway, that's not a feasible truck route because of the ramp clearance. The only one that's feasible is on Douglaston 1, and that's kind of, and that's the roadway that leads one off to the Cross Island, and it's kind of more like one of the more major thoroughfares. So if one has to avoid of the 3 roads, the 2 to be avoided is 61st and 65th. The only remaining is Douglaston. There isn't an option.
But that's only the exit entrance. What about getting from, once you enter the lot or leave the lot, getting to the place where the loading docks are?
Right.
So the question is, why isn't there another way to drive instead of driving past all those houses?
That's for them to answer, but
Yeah,
I think my sense of the layout was anything behind the fairway, any circulation that's going to happen behind this fairway, it's going to get impacted by these ramp approachways and other things. So there isn't any clearance. The only clearance is here because the ramp is all the way to the end. I'm showing,
She's pointing in the air.
in the
and
plan. I'm sorry. The ramp that is closest to the residential buildings on the south side, one doesn't have to clear that because by the time there's enough of a clearance for the parking lot that's on the cellar level for a truck to go through. And when I was there, I didn't know, it was not a tractor trailer, but it was one of those big trucks that I think it was, I don't know whether it was going to Fairway or not, that I don't know. But that was the route, it was taking the route of the southern end of the Douglaston Parkway and going through that extreme southern corner
I just saw that.
to make the round. And that,
I didn't go to SharePoint. I didn't go to
So
some-
rather than us doing this, there are professional planners of parking lots, and that's who should actually be doing this. There should be a professional who's brought in, if they're not already there, to plan how the parking lot's going to work in conjunction with parked cars, like when do these truck deliveries take place? When you go to these construction material sites, they're busy all day long with sheetrock being unloaded. I always say sheetrock because it's the heaviest, noisiest, dirtiest thing, and there's so much demand for it, and there's also pipes that there's a lot of demand for, things like that, not to mention shrubs that are being purchased by contractors and all of that. And so I'd say that this is really something that a professional needs to be looking at, and we can't design the parking lot, and nor can the architect or a non-professional doesn't work with this kind of transportation maneuvering. We have those experts come here all the time, and they should be involved in this. So, because, yeah, anyway. Any others?
Well, I reviewed the most recent financial report, and I found it very responsive to my issues. They, first of all, beefed the report up with a very detailed narrative that explained all the comparables that they used and explained where they could not update their comparables, the reasons why. They also included about close to 100 pages of documentation. But I'm happy to say that in the most recent report, they actually drew conclusions from that documentation instead of relying on me to read it and draw the conclusions myself, which I did skim through it and draw conclusions. The most important things are now they have a new baseline for valuing all of the stores, and that baseline is not the strip mall stores, but it is the small inline mall stores. And then what they're basically saying is they're using that as the baseline, and then they're adjusting downwards for lack of visibility and challenges in getting around in the site for the proposed, and both lack of visibility challenges getting around the site as well as the lack of an anchor store in the as of right. And I found that all of their adjustments were logical, made sense. It did increase the income some. However, the overall, takeaway or summary of the report is the as of right still doesn't work, which is what I predicted, and the proposed does show a small return.
Could you just say what the baseline was again? The baseline?
Oh,
for
the actual baseline is now the small inline mall stores
small inline mall stores.
as opposed to those strip mall stores.
So another thing that I'm not familiar with, inline mall stores.
So those are like, all those little stores that provide filler, like, I don't know, Pinkberry or, those little bitty
Oh.
stores that you go into.
That are in malls.
That are in malls but aren't the big draw unless
Okay.
you're
So the
hankering
non-anchor
for
type
junk
stores.
food, then it
Right.
is a big draw. But it's like little stores.
Candy store.
Yeah, or even a small boutique clothing store, but not the big draw for a mall.
yes. I wanted to just add one comment in that I know there's going to be a major renovation that this site is going to undertake. The fence condition on the southernmost edge that backs up against the residential that needs.
Cinnabon?
So that should be
Cinnabon.
considered as part of the overall improvement.
So the fence condition on the southernmost end.
Backing up against the residential buildings, the residential rear yards actually, they need to be improved.
As in replace, to be clear,
Replaced would be
replace, need to be replaced. Okay. Commissioner Shetta?
Yeah, for the engineering, last time I had like three comments. The first one was in general related to the cost estimate, and I explained that it need to be clear. We need to easy follow the quantity calculations. The only item I got feedback on with this regard is the structural steel. I got a letter from the cost estimator explaining to me how the 26-ton, this year, the 26-ton structural steel were reached. So I'm good with the quantity for the structural steel. However, for the prices, I did believe last time that the pricing is a bit high, and I did ask them to look into these. They came back with explanations that this structural steel will be installed inside a building, and it was back and forth during that last week, and I did ask for backup on the pricing, and I didn't get that. So I saw in the last submission of the financial analysis that they took the pricing down a little bit from 10,000 to 7,500 just for the first item, and then the other two items didn't change. I'm not negotiating, and I need just something to keep it in our files as a backup. If you did something at 7,500 before structural steel, give it to us, provided that it should be similar, of course. Like I said, all the other line items in the construction cost estimate, they are still without explanation. So I'm not sure if, I'm afraid that if I take this, and I want to take it because I feel like we're at the end of the case, this is going to be like the tradition for the coming cost estimates. So if we take this one, don't believe that we're going to take it next time. So this is one thing. The second thing was on the engineering side for the structural step. And the reason I'm concerned about this item, and I'm keen to get some sort of analysis, is this line item for the structural slab is almost $1 million. The demolition, the installation, the reinstallation of the requested 6-inch slab cost about $1 million. So this is like a governing item here in the variance, and that's why I did ask for analysis. And when I asked it for this last time, the answer was you will get structural capacity analysis. What I got is actually a letter from Herrick Saylor Engineering, the structural engineer, and he's providing some sort of recommendations, and even he's addressing these recommendations to recommendations from somebody else, which is soil mechanics, the geotechnical engineer. The way this is done, and I'm sure they know maybe better than me, but I'll explain it for the benefit for everyone to listen. If I have a structural slab in a building and I want to evaluate the structural slab for this, we usually go drill some borings, do some subsurface investigation, and get the soil conditions, the soil properties, and then look at the existing slab, see how thick is it, and then take cores from this slab and break them in the lab and see how strong is the slab. And then through some sort of structural analysis, we usually come up with a capacity for this slab. So the conclusion from this part is this existing slab cannot take more than, let's say, 100 PSF, like the conclusion they draw. And then we, the structural engineers, ask ourselves, do we need more than 100 PSF? If the answer is yes, then the decision, the existing slab is not sufficient. It need to be either strengthened or it need to be demolished and a new slab need to be installed. And again, for the new slab to come up with the thickness, we need to determine what kind of concrete, so the concrete strength. And then we need to know the loads, the new loads that we need to apply. We want to put to this new slab, which is the 300 PSF obtained from Lowe's criteria. Then we run again a similar structural analysis to the first one and come up with a conclusion on the thickness, which in this case, they saying it's 6 inches. What I'm missing here, I got the geotechnical information, the subsurface information, I got the borings from soil mech, I got the final thickness. The existing one is 4 inch, the new one is proposed to be 6 inches. I got the concrete strength for the existing one, which is 4,400 PSI. But what I'm missing here is the process from the the process that resulted in the conclusion that the existing one is not good. Demolish it. I don't have these sort of like analyses. They are not existing in the submission. And then for the new slab, the proposed 6-inch slab, again, I don't have the same similar analysis that conclude that, okay, instead of 4-inch slab, we need 6-inch slab. I believe that engineer who's working on this, he got all the information he need in order to sit and in like 2 hours, run the analysis, put a package together, and sign it and seal it and give it to us. That's what I'm looking for on this specific item.
So, because the only thing they provided was from soil mechanics was that the soil had bearing capacity, and they recommend a 6-inch slab, but they don't tell you how.
They
That's the
provided
issue.
data
Yeah.
more than analysis. There is a huge difference between data and analysis. Data, you do your field investigation and you come up with data. The analysis, you take these data and put them in engineering equations, run some numbers, and come up with, okay, we need 5 inches, 6 inches. And by the way, I did look at one of the drawings that submitted. It's a typical Lowe's drawing. And I looked at the slab thickness on that drawing, and it's not 6 inches, it's 5 inches. So I'm not sure, do you really need 6 inches? It's up to the engineers. But again, all what I need is a package, table of contents, number 1, field investigation. We did 1, 2, 3, we found 1, 2, 3. And then analysis, some equations, conclusion, the existing 4-inch slab is no good, to take the 300 loose load. And then the next step is how much thickness we need to put instead of that existing 4-inch one. And again, some equations, some numbers, and the conclusion is 6-inch slab or even 10-inch slabs, up to you guys. And then sign and seal. Very simple like that. And if you can get us that element, that thing tomorrow, that would be very, very helpful.
Okay.
I had a question, and the way, this is not my field of expertise, so it's a question for you. Way I understood is, yes, the existing 4-inch slab does not work, but given Lowe's condition of requirement of the column spacing and the minimum clear height of 15 foot that's required, they would be placing some of the specific loads and other things in such a way that would require it to be a 6-inch thick slab. That's kind of what I got away.
That's what they are saying.
Right.
Yes. What they are saying is, for this existing store, this slab can take up to 100
Right.
pound per square foot. So if you
Right.
want to put loads on this slab, the existing one, if you put more than 100 on every single square foot by foot, this slab will crack. This is their conclusion.
Right.
But Lowe's will put 300, up to 300
Right.
pound on every single square foot.
Right.
Is it gonna take it? Of course not, because its capacity is just 100. How, the answer to this, how the engineer can come up with that conclusion? Why a 4-inch slab cannot take just up to 100 and 6-inch slab can take 300? There are some sort of analyses, engineering analyses that need to be run. Like if I'm designing a beam to span from here to here, and the space upstairs is just a roof, it's not accessible. This beam need to be probably W12, 12-inch. But if you have a storage place on top of that floor, then the loads are heavier. This cannot be 12 inches, need to be probably 20 inches. The way we get to this 12-inch or the 20-inch is to run some engineering analysis, and that's what is missing here. They gave us all, if I'm the engineer who's doing this, I would have done it in 2 hours and submitted, signed and sealed and submitted, but for some reason, it's not there.
And with respect to the column grid, they have this prototypical building Does that respond to your question about
The,
the
the
column
column,
grid?
the column grid is not something that's related to engineering. They are saying that we need to put things here. The existing column grid is 24 by 28, and from the geometry perspective, this is not gonna be sufficient for us. That's why they are seeking additional floor area outside that. But this has nothing to do with the slab. If you could, the spacing, the column spacing could be 100 by 100, and the slab is 4 inch, but it can accommodate the loads. And if you switch from 100 by 100 to 20 by 20, it doesn't mean that the structural capacity of the slab will change. The column spacing has nothing to do with the structural capacity.
Right,
of the slab.
I do understand that. No, my question, you had asked, where's your data support for the idea that the existing column spacing in this
They gave us a
a
typical
prototype.
drawing from Lowe's
Okay.
that says that Lowe's is calling for, I believe, 40 something by 48 by 44, something like that,
Yeah.
or 42 by 48. So they gave us a drawing from Lowe's, providing,
Okay.
indicating that the existing grid is not gonna be okay for them.
Okay, so that's a.
Yes, that's
that was
covered, yes.
persuasive.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just want to also make sure your response has been addressed with regards to the extended area, the additional extended area that's being proposed. For that, the floor slab thickness that they're proposing is 5 inches. That's acceptable, or are you questioning that also?
No.
You need the analysis for that also.
I need analysis for whatever slab is gonna be demolished and replaced. And they are talking about 94,000 square feet that's gonna be demoed, and then they will need to put new 6-inch thick slab.
So it's only the 6-inch thick slab
Yes,
areas where you
yes.
have.
Because they show 5-inch on the prototype, right?
Yes, I saw 5-inch on the Lowe's drawing, yes.
Right, and they are also proposing a new 5-inch thick, unreinforced concrete slab on grade for the outside area, the sales area.
Oh, but that may have a different loads, because it's
Yeah.
outside, it may be for
So-
plants.
And that's what I just
right?
wanted to
Yeah,
make sure
yeah.
that we're okay with that one. It's the 6
Even,
inch is
even
what
the
we are
6-inch
questioning.
one, I don't think it's reinforced with rear rebar. It could be reinforced with wire mesh or something like that. It's, at the end of the day, it's a slab on grade. It takes the load and put them directly on the ground, so it's lightly reinforced. The other slab that I thought that they're gonna put last time, when I said, if you have that, you don't need to go with $8.50 per square foot, I thought they're gonna put structural slab usually do not take the load and put them on the ground. They take them to the columns, and then from the columns to the pile caps or to the footings. So it bridge the loads to the column locations. And if we have this one, by the way, yes, the column grid spacing would, of course, control the slab thickness. But we don't have that condition on this project.
All right. Okay, so if the applicant wants to get started on the responses to these questions, today, and if there's further questions for clarification, to speak to Jello.
So in short, two things.
Yeah,
Pricing backup on the 7,500 for the structural steel. This is number one. Number two, probably 5-page package with some calculations, some engineering calculations signed and sealed. Very simple.
yeah. And then from my perspective, I need to hear from a transportation planner, a trucking parking planner, as opposed to, for instance, the environmental consultant who's not a parking planner, right? Sometimes our environmental consultants are also parking planners, but not in this case.
And if there are any changes to the financials due to the changes in the construction costs incorporated into the final report.
I don't think the structural steel pricing would, because the structural steel as a line item is not huge. It's like probably less than 200,000 on the structural steel. For the slab thing, this is nothing related. It's not gonna impact the financial. It's
Okay.
engineering. So
All right.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Move on? Item number 12, 2018-17BZ, 2600 Highland Boulevard, Staten Island.
Okay, we have proof of initial submission to officials and proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. This is not a legalization. The Community Board 2 recommends approval. We do have DOI. Just a note to council, the resolution should refer to the City Planning Commission actions and indicate also that there's an E designation on this site for hazmat. I'd like the applicant, though, to clarify on the site plans, A1 and A2, the location of the proposed PCE on the second floor, because actually you look at the drawing, you don't really know where the PCE is located in that building. And whether all the 37,000 square feet that is the PCE is on the second floor. Because I wasn't really sure, and is the pool and spa part of it? And I wasn't really sure how those things were fitting together. Others?
I just wanted to know what was underneath, this on the second floor, what was on the first floor? What is this PC going to be over? And I know they have some noise cancellation, they put that in their statement of facts, but I'd still like to know what is going to be occupying the first floor of this establishment.
No shopping center. It's going to be retail.
Retail, it's a shopping center.
Yeah.
Is it up now? 'Cause
No, it's
No,
under
it's
construction.
it's under construction.
So there's an existing shopping center, and then they're going to tear down one of the buildings and build a new building. So this is in the new building.
Okay.
That's why we can say it's not a legalization. It's some assurance. Okay.
All right, this concludes the public review session for May 7, 2018.